So folks, if you see something that's broken and it needs fixed, you can either leave it fixed and say, nah, it's too hard. No, it's not my job. It's not my responsibility. Or you can dive in. My next guest dove in. Downtown was dead. He wanted to bring it back. He wanted to brew beer and he wanted to serve people well. He did it. Doug Reynolds next on Purpose Under Pressure. The heat is on. Let's get cooking. And in this case, again, brewing. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people just like you, me, business folk who get up out of bed, put their feet on the floor and go to work on purpose. We've got a why and it puts us to work. But what do we do when the pressures rise to try to knock us down? That's what it's all about, and that's what this show's about. Don't forget to like us, follow us, subscribe, tell a friend. Anyone you know that might appreciate an encouraging word, to know that someone else, another business person, another organization leader has gone through similar issues trying to get things right and stay on track. We do appreciate your likes and follows and referrals. It helps other people to know that the show might just be worth listening to. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for coming back. Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group. They are sales trainers and they are amazing. They're serving sales professionals nationwide from their Akron and Columbus, Ohio locations. They're also in Jacksonville, Florida. They do it right. That's why they're on this show. That's why they're partners with this show. It's because I like the way they work. They're on purpose. They don't let things get in their way when things don't go right. They just don't quit the right way. And that's what I love about them. And that's what you're going to love about them too. It's the way you want your sellers to work. You don't want your sellers taking shortcuts, not even if it means making the deal. You want them to do it the right way. That's how you grow. And that's the way Sandler does it. You can check them out online at therubygroup.sandler.com. Today, we are talking about pressures and hurdles. And I think we're talking about making a leap, stepping out of the boat when there is nothing but uncertainty in front of you. At least that's the way I see it. We're going to find out if that's the same way that my guest sees it. He is Doug Reynolds. He's co-owner with his wife, Anna, of Uniontown Brewing Company right here in Ashland, Ohio. I love Uniontown Brewing Company. I think one of the tables there is named after me at this point, Doug. I'm not sure. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not quite as regular as I think, but maybe pretty close. Maybe we can talk about sponsorship and I can get a plaque there on my favorite table. Doug Reynolds, welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really glad to. I've always wanted to have this conversation. You and I have met a few times, but I kind of showed up when Uniontown was open and the beer was flowing and everything was good. People knowing people and having a good time. And I have a feeling there's a bigger story behind it. And so I'm interested in talking about that. Doug, if you can tell me a little bit from your own perspective, not about the business yet, but you and Anna, what are you guys trying to do? What's your purpose?
What's my purpose?
Yeah.
My purpose was to bring something to Ashland that it needed. We traveled a lot to Chicago to see friends. And everywhere we went, I thought to myself for years, I was like, man, this is something that I could really bring to Ashland. It wasn't always about the downtown, but then it ended up being about downtown and where it is and local. And I mean, when you go out of town to big cities, you don't find a McDonald's at every corner. There's local places on every corner. And that's the way it should. It's the way it's always been and it's the way it should be. And that we just wanted to bring that feel and that vibe here. And I think when we started it, that was our purpose. Our purpose was to bring something that was inviting, that people could come and hang out and enjoy their families and enjoy a good meal, and then enjoy a good beer.
Was it about the beer and the meal, or was it about bringing something local? Was there something in you that wanted to be a brewer and a restaurateur, or was it just about anything at all to bring?
I was doing both of them. I was brewing in my garage. I was working for Ashland University in the food industry, in the food side of the purpose. Okay. And it just, one day it just all clicked. And it was like, you know, we talked about owning our own business after we got married. We tried to buy one. It didn't happen. So then, you know, life goes on. We adopted 2 children. We move on with our lives. And all of a sudden we're like, you know what? We walked away from something that we had a dream on. I think we should pursue it. And we did. And it's been wonderful since.
And what you just said is exactly what this show is about. You have a dream, you have a desire, you have something you want to accomplish in your life. And when things get hard, people walk away. and
Yes.
they don't always get back to it. You got back to it. Folks, I want to set this up for you because, Doug, not everybody listening is in Ashland. We have an audience that goes quite a bit wider. I want to set folks up before Doug did what he did in Ashland and what he and his wife did in Ashland. Downtown was a ghost town. Now, people might get mad at me for saying that, but I think it's an accurate statement. There wasn't anything left, as it is in many downtowns across this country. It's just that's the way it happened. When the big box stores came in, people left the downtowns and they started to kind of dry up on the vine. And so restaurants are hard. Bars and brewing is even harder in an area where there's no foot traffic. That to me says, look, the pressure's way too big. The purpose can't overcome it. I'm interested in how you actually flipped the switch and said, okay, all the odds are against us. We're doing this.
Well, I'll start off, and I didn't place it earlier. I grew up on Main Street. My mom managed the Jupiter store across the street from me. I went to restaurants. With the Ashland restaurant, I would come down and go with her to lunch. I saw it when downtown was thriving in the 80s, and I saw it in the 90s when I was a teenager, when it was horrible and it was empty and storefronts were bad. I'm trying to think, I lost your question because I moved on for that.
Well, no, I'm interested. That's the thing that you remembered, and I was saying that, yeah, but that wasn't there when you turned the switch. How did you make that decision?
I bought all my jeans, all my shoes, everything was downtown when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you're talking, I mean, that was in the 80s. So from 80 to 90. Downtown was not a ghost town. It wasn't dead.
Right.
It wasn't until about the 90s, I think. I hate to say when the big box store moved in up on Claremont. My mom worked for, like I said, Jupiter, which is actually Kmart. So she retired from almost 40 years at Kmart. When Kmart moved out up north, up by the fairgrounds, that kind of took a lot of that business with it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it happened. What made me decide to do this? Is that what the question was? I'm sorry, Brian.
I'm trying to. So with all that, the fact that downtown is dying and downtown is maybe even dead, and they're dead everywhere, and yet you're going to open up a restaurant and a brewery, which is hard enough as it is, in a place where there's no foot traffic. The question I'm asking is, how did you finally say, look, we're doing this against all odds, against everyone telling us this is nuts? We're doing this. How was that decision made?
It was made, and I've told the story 100 times, it was made on our back deck. My wife and I were sitting out there one day having a glass of wine. Surprisingly, not beer. But we both had just had a bad day at work, and we started talking about what we wanted to do. And it was like, you know what? Let's do it. So we moved forward. We looked for almost 2 years at almost every building in this downtown because that's where we wanted to be. Okay. And walking in and out of buildings with Rob Ward, and we never thought about this building. It was always on the market. It was too big. It was scary. The price was high. I mean, I could have picked up any building in this town for $40,000. You can't touch one now for less than $300,000. This one had a way bigger price tag, which was scary. But our realtor at the time pulled us in, showed us that the previous owner had already split this place into 4 different units. It had income. It was going to help pay for the loan. And then so my wife, Ann, and I went back to the board. We're looking at how to make it. Is it going to work? We were going to try to both keep our full-time jobs. But I looked at Anna, the final decision, I looked at Anna and I said, you know what? I'm making $30,000 a year at a job. Yeah. If this doesn't work, we're out. This is what we're out. Yep. I can go get another job for that kind of money and do something. So it's either move forward and make that leap or stay on the same plane. All my employees, I've always talked to them. If you're going to leave me, I don't care if you leave me. As long as you're going up in your life, that is the best move. If you move lateral or want to go down, then I feel like I failed you or you're making a bad decision. And I will help you on that way to move up. Mm-hmm. Every boss that I've ever had has always helped me move up in my life. And I don't have a college education. I worked hard to get where I am. And it was just that leap. It was just, I just said, let's do it. And you know what the thing is we never looked back. Yeah. I never doubted it. And that is the strongest part. We never thought to each other that we can't do this and got scared. It just kept moving and kept moving.
Kept going. I love the idea. I talk a lot about a worst case scenario when you're trying to make a decision of whether to go or whether to not, or whether to do or whether to not. What's the worst case scenario if you fail? And like, actually tell it to yourself. Like, what is it? And for you, it was like, look, I'll go get another $30,000 job. And for other people, it might be different, but usually the worst case scenario isn't so bad. Go ahead and go for something. Go get it and get it done and take a chance and take a risk. Doug, you just said that you never looked back, but was there ever a moment where you looked at Anna or you looked inside your mind and said, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. I'm in real trouble?
No, believe it or not, never. I don't know why. I don't know. I just had a feeling in me that this was going to work. Now, was it scary at times? Because when you're talking about opening up a business, you can get a contractor in, you get your place open in about 5 to 6 months, depending on build outs, whatever else. When you're going to be a brewery, the wait time to become a brewery then was 9 to 12 months just to get your brewer's license. Just
to get the license, not about brewing the beer, but just to get the license.
You can actually are not even allowed to brew beer on site until you get that brewer's permit from the TTB, which used to be the ATF, from a federal standpoint.
Okay.
And to get all that, liquor licenses are scary because you have to have a physical address. You can't say, I want to open up a bar or a brewery. You have to have a building and a physical address before they will even accept your applications. So now you're looking, it took us 9 months to get our brewer's notice. That's a long time to sit and wait. Usually, because you can get 6 months for, from a bank to, not expect that payment, but we were still trying. It was scary at times. If you ever think about scariness, it's usually contractors and licensing.
Yeah.
There's a couple times we're 8 months in and I'm standing in my place and there's nobody here. Yeah. That's when I finally quit my job and became my own general contractor and got the place done.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, so you're relying on others to get it done. They're not getting it done. You've got to get this moving. And so instead of panicking or figuring it out another way, you went all in.
I quit my job.
Wow.
Was in here every day working on something. We did 90% of the work, I think, compared to my contractor at that time. I'm not going to bash him. He did a great job. I'm telling you, we had a host of an amazing local businesses that stepped up, gave me great pricing because they had the same dream that I had to bring this Ashland back because they were all locals. It got daunting at the end and we kind of fell in the cracks. Everybody was doing something else and I had to step up and say, pulled everybody back in, the HVAC and the plumbing and the electricians and say, we need to move forward. We got to get this done. It's too far in and too far moving to quit.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we ended up. And we gave the final push. My wife has an amazing family of probably about 60 people in this town, and they all live in town.
Okay.
The Boyer family, if anybody knows it,
okay.
They were in here every Saturday, every Sunday, almost like a barn raising. I always talk about it. We had lunch and dinner here, and everybody went home. And we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for them and their support. So
that's tremendous. Doug, what about the restaurant part of it? The beer is one thing. People either like it or they don't. Everyone's got their favorite. And then craft brewing. Right. You were in fairly the beginning of this craft brewing explosion that's taken off. It was there before you, but you've really kind of jumped on and drove it first. But what about the food? Like, how hard is it to keep a restaurant open? You're open late hours. You've got different things on the menu. How does that play into your success?
It was really hard at the beginning.
I bet.
When we, like you said, beer is one thing. When I received my brewer's license from the state, we were number 181. There's over 450 breweries now in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
Yes. So, you know what I mean? So, but knowing beer and knowing my town and knowing this I mean, you do a business plan. It's amazing when you sit down and do a business plan, you talk to somebody and you show it to your bank. And I still look at mine from the day one I did it. You have to have a vision of what's going to sell. Well, then you start looking at, well, how many pints of beer we're going to sell. I can't pay my bills for that pint of beer. So we have to have so then the step up is we got to have a restaurant. So we stepped up. When we found the building, I walked right through and said, yep, we can put a kitchen in this. The food it was a must. It was a really must we had to have, I think, to make it work. There's quite a few breweries that just have tap rooms and they're doing food trucks now, which wasn't an option back 7 years ago. There wasn't that many food trucks, and the state actually required you to have a food license to have a beer license.
Okay.
But it goes back to what I started with. When we went to these places in Chicago, the food was good, and I wanted to bring all of it. I mean, I was making good beer in my garage. I was making good food at my place where I was working at AU. AU has some of the best chefs in the world, and I learned a lot from them. And I just brought that with me, and we figured, let's go for it. And we came in with some scary items. I mean, things that people don't know about. Gouda cheese and pesto mayonnaise and risotto and just things that's a top tier, but not. I mean, we kind of wanted to grab that, not a burger and fry place, but not a white tablecloth place. Grab that middle, grab some happy people. We put no TVs into place, which was the best thing we ever decided to do.
Yep.
I mean, that brings that whole part of bring your family, enjoy your day, go home, enjoy your life.
Yeah. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about downtown because that's a big part of your purpose. But your purpose is also bringing something great. You just described it. Is Uniontown Brewing Company everything you thought it would be, or did the pressure change things out a little bit? Is it different? Is it better, or is it not quite up to what you originally hoped?
It's better than I ever expected. The town support was way better than I ever expected. We, as you all know, we opened up, we were only open up a year and a half, and COVID shut everything down. We had the most tremendous support from this town and everybody here to keep us afloat. I have 42 people now that I have to worry about, 42 staff and 42 families. And for all of them to be protected through COVID was amazing. And to bring them all back afterwards was amazing. My level, I think we're down a little on the level I want to be at. It has to do a lot with staffings. It's not that I don't have enough staff; it's the skill levels anymore. And I mean, it's just to be able to do risottos and fancy steaks and capellinis and things like you need skilled laborers. And the workforce right now is a lot of younger crowd, 17, 18, and it takes some time. So I have noticed bringing your menu down a little bit so you can compensate with your labor force. Yeah. So, but we are still top tier, and we're still there, and it's getting better. The more these kids learn, the better they are. So
I love that. And I think in my time of going there, which is probably since COVID, I would assume, but I think it's gotten better almost like every time. Like I can see that you're actually working at it.
It is. And everybody tells me that. It's just my aspect. You know what I mean? It's
awesome.
It's all on me. You know what I mean? Because I want to be the best that I've ever been always. That's the way I've always looked at anything. I've always looked at something. If I can't fix it, it's broken. So, I look at I work on my own coolers. I work on all the machinery downstairs. I work on it before I even call somebody. Yeah. I don't automatically just call a technician. No, I've had enough experience with coolers. I can problem solve it a little bit. And if I can't do it, then I will concede and I'll move on and let somebody else do it.
One of the biggest problems we have as managers and leaders is sometimes we're not focusing on leading and we end up doing it for our sales team. How do we coach our people to help them figure out what self-limiting belief that they have that's holding them back from achieving the levels of success that they know they're capable of? Help them flush out what we call their own head trash, that thing that's holding them back. So work with your team, lead by example, watch your team achieve greater levels of success, and watch your team grow, and more importantly, watch your company and your business grow.
Well, you're bootstrapping, and then you did that. You talked about how when it wasn't going right, you quit your job, you jumped in, you got it all done, and you're still a small business, and dollars aren't growing on trees, and so you've got to take those kind of things and do what you've got to do when you do it. Now I want to talk about downtown. You said at the beginning of the program, I grew up here, it was thriving, the big box stores came, it died. I wanted to bring it back. And people who listen might argue with me that maybe there was someone else. I don't know. But I give Uniontown the credit for bringing foot traffic back. And once the foot traffic came back, Mayor Miller and those everybody that had anything to do with downtown, Sandra Tennell, brought more back. But I think you were the seed. And I want to thank you for that. And I'm interested in what your thoughts are. Looking back on it now, that was your purpose. That's what you said you wanted to do.
Right.
I think you did it. What do you think?
I believe so. When we were, like I said, go back to the business plan. When we're going through this and we're looking at and we're researching, breweries were the seed for all of Ohio and the country of revitalizing the areas they were in and bringing back that local water hole. People see it as a scary thing because it's alcohol. It's not. It's a gathering place. And that's one thing we wanted to get to. We're not a bar. We've never been open past 11 o'clock since the day we opened. Now we're not open past 10. That's the times we're in right now. But even back then, we never wanted that feel, that place, have a few beers, go home. I don't need a bunch of drunkards. And we captured that. The town was, yes, it was dead. And I've always
and it's not anymore.
Didn't accept because everybody keeps telling me that we were the beginners. We did all this. We've done all this, and it's hard to take credit. But I see it. So I almost have to accept that we've been the beginning seed to get this going. We've got 2 new restaurants downtown. I would love to see more. We've got a mayor that is trying to bring in hundreds of more people in housing in just the city area. I'm on the Main Street board. We're on 95 or 96% of the buildings are occupied now compared to 70% when we showed up here. I mentioned earlier, properties were $40,000. Now properties are selling for $300,000. A lot of that has to do with the economy right now and the real estate, but a lot of it I'm assuming has to do with us. I have a hard time being modest and taking that credit, but.
Well, you take credit for what you've done. You did it first, I believe, and you opened a path for others. I mean, that's what leaders do, and someone's got to do it. And I think you're the right guy that had an opportunity to get it done. And I want to try to explain to people, and maybe folks, you've seen it in your hometown too. Maybe there's a Doug Reynolds in your town that's building things up and is being that seed. But you drive through downtown now. And you can't get through. You can't park. People are happy. They're bringing their families. They're walking up and down the sidewalks. It looks nice when you look down the crossroads. I don't know what they're called, but like the alleyways where the other businesses are, they're full too.
They are.
It's just really cool seeing the growth. And I think it's to the point now, like you said, with the rising property values, other businesses, other organizations, they want to come in and Absolutely. They're driving the rates up because there's no more space. And it's just going to be a win-win. I think when downtowns thrive, that's the rock. That's the nucleus. That's the part that's going to be here forever. And that's what's going to make the whole thing work. And folks, if your town is kind of going through that, find yourself a Doug Reynolds and have somebody plant that seed. Doug, what's the future look like? You talked a little bit about the problems with employees, and I know that. I know that's an issue. It's an issue with every single organization. I don't care what they do. It's hard to find workers to do the quality of work you need. What else is on the horizon? What else is coming up, bubbling up, the storms that are rising that are going to kind of work against you here as you continue to try to get better at what you do?
Inflation is really, really bad right now, especially if you weren't locked into a locked-in interest rates. Interest rates are devastating right now, so it's hard to get for somebody like a Doug Reynolds somewhere in another town. It's really hard with the SBA now. I'm hearing that it's the percentages are just out there, and it's making those hurdles even higher for somebody to jump. I don't
How about
see.
for you? How about for you on the restaurant side in Uniontown and the things that you want to do? What are you having to overcome, you think, in the future that's going to be kind of a rocky road?
I'm having
do
to
you think?
overcome not making decisions years ago, when things were a little cheaper, less costly for construction, for build outs. We had a huge vision, and I would blame COVID for a lot of that, because you get a little scared and you pull back a little bit. We're doing great. We've got, like I said, 43 staff. We're moving along. Everything's growing, but you just kind of pull back a little bit instead of expanding upstairs. I have 53,000 square feet here that are unused, almost 50,000 that are unused, that needs to be added to this town to make it even bigger and better. And that's our next goal and our next hurdle. It's just pulling that trigger and doing it and finding the time. That's where we're heading.
Yeah. I don't always spend a lot of time talking about products and services and things, but your beer is really good. I mean, I'd like to kind of deviate from what I normally do. I'm a big beer fan. What is it hard to brew beer? Is it risky? Is it scary? Is it a cost, prohibitor? What's the problem? What's the pressures that come when you're trying to be a good brewer of beer?
The pressures are, people want bubbly, people want, carbonation. They want it to taste like the place they had it before. They want it to be really good. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not hard to brew beer, but it's hard to make good beer.
Yeah.
I was making really good beer at home. I didn't have the expertise that a lot of people do in the background, so I was learning on my own as I went. Brewed for many years. I partnered up with Derek, my brewer. Derek Smetzer, he's a local guy here, and he has taken my really good beer, and together we've made it exceptional.
Yeah,
by changing the salts in the water and the ingredients. We haven't deviated from my flagships, other than adding a little mouthfeel on the water side on the salts. We call it salts, and adding calciums and things like that. So it is a science, and it is hard. It is hard to make exceptional beer that people will drink day in and day out. And it takes time. But yeah. I tell you, I've always treated it like a chef in a kitchen. And that's where, and Derek, and he homebrews, and he always treats it as like a science. I take 5 ingredients, and I was like, man, these are going to taste really good together. And he'll even look at me and go, I don't know, man. Those don't really good. I said, just try it. Let's try it. If it's horrible, we'll throw it down the drain.
Yeah. Again, worst case scenario, right?
In 7 years, I've taken 2 batches down the drain, and that is it. So
only 2. Wow.
2.
Good for
and
you.
We've made almost 85 different beers since we've opened.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. I come in and there's always something different. I do love my IPAs. I kind of do things through seasons. So in the winter, I might drink something red or something a little darker, and that's kind of the way I do it. Well, folks, you don't need to know about my drinking habits. That's your small little dive into beer on Purpose Under Pressure. So we'll edit out of that a little bit. Hey, Doug, as we end, if people wanted to find you, wanted to know where you're located, want to come see you, maybe visit you on the website, maybe even talk to you about building a business or helping a downtown or living your dream in that situation, how would they reach out to you?
They can find us at Ashland, Ohio, 105 West Main Street. We're the largest, oldest building in downtown. You can't miss us. The sign is huge. There's an old Gilbert's Furniture sign hanging right above us. Hopefully in the future it's gonna relight again. So, and you can find us on uniontownbrewing.com. I'm always open to talk to anybody. I've talked to multiple people over the years on how to open up another brewery, any hurdles to jump, what to look for, what avenues to take to save money, grants. There's all kinds of stuff. Call the brewery. I'm here almost 24/7. It seems like some weeks. So come in and ask for me, and I'll give you a tour, and we'll talk.
Well done. Well done, Doug. That's Doug Reynolds. Folks, the cool thing about doing this show is I get to meet people on purpose. Doug and I have run into each other a few times. Of course, like I said, I hang out at the bar a lot, but we never really talked. And this is my first time of actually understanding and hearing a story and actually meeting you. And part of the fun thing about doing this show is that I get to meet all kinds of business people. Every one of them, Doug, is down to earth, blue collar, roll up the sleeves. I don't care how big the company is. I don't care male, female, old, young. Successful business people roll up their sleeves and get it done. And they do it for a better purpose than just making money. And I think that's you, and you fit the mold, and you're going to do great things. I appreciate your sharing the story on Purpose Under Pressure.
I appreciate you having me on.
That's Doug Reynolds, folks. He's the owner with his wife of Uniontown Brewing Company right here in Ashland, Ohio. I hope this story resonates wherever you are, whether you're in Ashland or whether you're in California. There is a small town somewhere that needs a little jolt, and there are people that need a place to go and to gather. And if you have those two things, do what Doug did. Figure out your worst case scenario and dive in, all in. That'll be your purpose, and I promise you, you'll overcome the pressure. And that is what this show is all about. Thank you very much for being our guest on Purpose Under Pressure. It's brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group, sellers under pressure to perform, and so Sandler helps you to succeed on purpose. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your podcasts. We do this every week, and we'll see you next time on Purpose.